What's up, everybody, and welcome to this special live edition of Syracuse Sports, presented by Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for SU Athletics. Brent Axe, Mike Waters here, and Mike, this must mean the dreaded portal has struck again, and thus it has, ladies and gentlemen, as Malik Brown becomes the latest Syracuse basketball player to announce his intentions to enter the transfer portal. Joe Tipton of On3, the first to report that, and we confirmed at syracuse.com. So as we speak here at 5:06 p.m. Eastern Standard Time live, this is still, as I think it was Howard Cosell who once said, a developing situation, right? But a lot of the same questions come up, Mike. What will Syracuse do to respond? There's literally hundreds of names in the portal of which they could respond. Thousands. And how thousands. Yeah, I mean, we're getting to that point. And a lot of the same debates come up here. But I thought it'd be a good time to just kind of take a breath. Here's what we know. Here's what we think we know. Here's what we don't know, and kind of where Syracuse is at. But one thing that's evident, Mike, here is now Adrian Autry is getting to the point where you've lost a few names here. The pendulum, and it will, has to swing back the other way here. I think you're going to start seeing some additions to the Syracuse basketball roster. But let me just ask you initially, Mike, what was your reaction when you heard Malik went in the portal today?
A little bit of surprise. I can't say I was totally shocked. I'd been told a week ago that, by a source saying, yeah, these Syracuse guys you think are coming back, I've heard one of them might be 50-50. And, it was like, okay, the core, like, we're talking J.J. Starling, Chris Bell, Malik Brown. And the answer was, one of those guys. So didn't know which one of the three. And I had heard it was 50-50. So, thought maybe it was a chance all of them would come back. But, here you are with the big news. And it's just crazy right now. I know Syracuse fans are, on the ledge or, running it down the street, hair on fire.
Don't do it.
And I get it, but, Syracuse isn't the only program in this boat right now. There's a lot of programs where guys have hit the portal. Virginia Tech doesn't know if they're going to even have a starter back. So this is the portal. I think we're all fans, media, coaches, all of us are still getting used to the impact of the portal and how it can hurt a program, how it can help a program, or just, how you just have to deal with life in these circumstances. But I thought it was baseball season. I know somewhere on your desk there's got to be a lacrosse ball, and you thought it was lacrosse season.
There's
right,
a baseball up there too. Throughout the first pitch in an Auburn Doubledays game back in the day, it's up there.
It's not. It's not lacrosse season or baseball season in our little corner of the
Spring
world.
Football hot and heavy right now, right? No, basketball.
Season,
it's portal season, exactly. And we're going to hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders later, Mike, and I think they are expressing what a lot of people are feeling. Like, I get what these players are doing. I understand it. I don't begrudge them the opportunity to pursue an opportunity elsewhere, but it just makes it harder to commit yourself to being a fan. Jerry Seinfeld said it famously, you root for laundry in sports, but you want to connect with people and players. And every year now, you're just hitting the reset button. And I tweeted this out, Mike, like, you have to eliminate the word surprise from your vocabulary. Malik did tell Ardana Datota at the end of the season that he was coming back, which this is nothing on him. It's just in general. That means nothing, right? Because these guys have the opportunity to change their minds. Opportunities will come. Offers will come. You've heard certainly players say they're coming back, but things change, especially when the reality of the season being over hits and how the portal works now. There's a lot of back channeling. There's just a lot of opportunities that arise that weren't there when we were asking these guys at the end of the season what was going on. So I get that frustration. I don't really have an answer for it other than you kind of have to root for the front of the jersey and not the back of the jersey at this point. So Syracuse is now in a position where, so let me go through the list here, Mike. Quadir Copeland, Justin Taylor. We knew Benny Williams was going to go, but he, of course, is in the portal. Malik Brown now, and Peter Carey. We're anticipating Judah Mintz. That has not become official yet. He has not made his plans known about where he's going on here, but I would fall out of my chair, frankly, if Judah Mintz was on this roster next year, given the opportunities that he has.
I don't think he will be.
I don't think he's going to be.
I think he enters the NBA draft, and I think this year he probably stays in, unless he's blown away by an NIL offer from another school.
Which can happen.
It could, absolutely. Yeah, and we don't know what he'll hear from scouts when he goes through the NBA process this year. And again, the NIL has changed things, obviously. Like, we've seen Syracuse guys go into the NBA draft, and even though they weren't going to be drafted or were borderline, they stayed in the draft anyway. Mm-hmm. O'Shea Brissett, Tyus Battle, both come to mind, right?
Two good examples.
They didn't. Now, if the NIL had been around for Tyus Battle or O'Shea, maybe they don't stay in the draft. They either return to Syracuse or maybe they go to a different school. But regardless, they wouldn't have turned pro. So the NIL has definitely changed things. As far as, the Syracuse fans and the reaction, and I saw a little bit of it on Twitter this afternoon after the Malik news. I'm sure you did too.
Oh, for sure.
And everyone's freaking out. And I get it. There is a little bit of a freak out moment. It's not something that's unique to the Syracuse fan base. You see it everywhere when this stuff starts to happen. I would remind people that I saw a lot of folks going, oh, this is, NIL. Syracuse can't compete. I think at this point, Malik Brown might be the only one of the portal guys whose decision might have been based on NIL. I don't think Quadir's decision was based on it. I know Peter Carey's wasn't. We also know for sure, Benny Williams's wasn't. Justin Taylor wasn't based on NIL, obviously. He struggled. He needs a reset. Peter Carey wasn't playing and had been hurt, and he probably, needs to drop down a level anyway. Quadir Copeland, that wasn't an NIL move.
No. No.
So, okay, maybe Malik was NIL. The other thing, too, with Malik Brown, we don't know. He hasn't talked yet. But, maybe he wasn't really thrilled with having to play the 5 full time this past year. Maybe he wants to go somewhere where he knows he can play the 4. And maybe he's looking over his shoulder going, wait a second, Syracuse has this kid named Donovan Freeman coming in. He's McDonald's All-American. And he kind of plays the 4. I always thought Donnie Freeman could play a little bit of the 3, but you have Chris Bell there. So, maybe it's like, listen, I want to go somewhere where I know I'm going to play at the 4 and not have to compete with a McDonald's All-American either. I don't know.
By the way,
we'll find out.
Donnie Freeman in the McDonald's All-American game Tuesday night, April the 2nd, 9:00. I'm not sure if it's ESPN or ESPN2. One of the two. So if you want to see Donnie Freeman in action, and what's this, a star-studded McDonald's game this year. Cooper Flagg, who's going to Duke next year, and a couple of great players in that game. And I would put Donnie Freeman on that list, by the way. Malik Brown, Mike, I mean, how many times do we look in the box score this year and you're just like, wow. It was almost like a perfect game, double-doubles, stat stuffer. He was all defensive team, ACC, led the league in steals. By the way, you had that stat in your article that's up on syracuse.com this afternoon. That was a wow moment for me. Like, man, I know he had a lot of steals, but to lead the ACC in steals is pretty significant. But what you said, I think, makes a lot of sense, Mike. You've got to play Donnie Freeman next year, and he is as strong a 4 as you can get. If Malik doesn't want to play the 5 or adjust, that was a good problem to have in a way. But if he sees an opportunity where he knows he's going to go play at the position he's most comfortable in, I can't blame him there. In terms of NIL, I agree with you, but it is interesting. Like, I mean, I was just watching it last night. Oh, Duncan O'Bright. And there's Malik Brown selling me furniture, right? Like, he had some NIL opportunities. It's not like he was devoid of that, but
I think there would have been more for him next year.
I think so as well. That's what
you're losing. It's almost like a pro team these days. You're losing Judah Mintz. Oh, that really hurts. You got to replace the scoring, but you know what? It creates cap room.
Yeah.
For lack of a better term in this day with portal. Okay, so it creates cap room. Now you can give a little bit more money to Chris Bell, a little bit more money to Malik Brown. Donnie Freeman's going to get his. He's your recruit.
That's what surprises me. He had playing time, had a role, had NIL, but you can roll the dice in the portal and even top maybe what you were going to get here at Syracuse. And he will be a desired entity. Like, he will cut through the literally over 1,000 names in the portal, and there will be a line around the block for his services. I think that is a gamble well worth taking, as much as it stings to see it from a Syracuse perspective.
Well, and we'll see how fast he makes his decision, because have any schools been talking to him or his representatives through back channels, and there's already like a short list of schools or maybe one school. We don't know. I mean, I'm speculating here, but listen, in this day and age, we know these kids in some sense or circumstances are getting poached. And that's a mean term. That's kind of an accusatory term.
That's what it is, though. They're mercenaries now.
It is kind of what
I hate to be harsh, but that's what
I'm
they
not blaming the player here. I'm blaming the other schools. It's like, they're talking to people, not talking to Malik, but they're talking to a coach, a representative, somebody out there is like making the rounds. And it's like, Malik Brown's nice looking player. Be a shame if something happened to him.
And if Malik listens to the wind carefully enough, it will get to him one way or the other. Like, that's how this stuff works now. Mike, I was talking to somebody today. It is amazing how this movie has held up through the years. And it's just over 30 years old now. Blue Chips. Nick Nolte, wow. Penny Hardaway, Shaq. You go back and you look at the things they were doing in that movie. And back then you're like, your eyes are bugging out of your head. And you're like, that does not happen. That's normal now. Like, you're moving families, you're giving them cars, you're giving them money. That's just the world we're in now. That movie was, by the way, Jim Boeheim was in that movie as a couple of cameos. Was so ahead of its time. And even in 2024, you look at that and you're like, man, they knew even then where all this was heading. And that's where we are in college sports.
It'd be a heck of a remake to do that movie again now, but have some of the norms and what's good or what's bad and what's expected and what's not turned around. Like, who plays that Nolte role and what kind of coach would he be now? Would he be the coach advocating athlete rights? Yes, I want to play the portal. They should get their money. I want them to have a share of the TV revenue. That's the other thing too. We're talking NIL and we're going to talk transfers. We'll get back on it. But one tangent for me, please. It's interesting how schools have been told, like, we have to share the wealth with the player. The players do deserve money. And the schools have done this marvelous job of, like, they're not sharing TV money right now.
Right.
They created NIL collectives and they're getting the money from fans and boosters.
That's right.
The schools
By the way,
still have that cash.
I'm writing that. We got a Netflix series here, Mike. I'm writing this down. You and I will write the script this summer.
And is Bob Cousy still alive? Because if he is, I still say he can go to the free throw line and make all those free throws he did in the movie.
He was great in that movie. He was great in that movie. So was Nick Nolte, by the way.
I know the legend, when he was doing that one scene and shooting the free throws.
All improv. All improv, and Nick Nolte, that line at the end where he's like, don't you ever miss? That was not in the script. I do know that part.
Yeah, and one take too. Bob Cousy at that age still did not miss.
I did not know that was one take. That's incredible. All right. So we're getting on a tangent here, but it applies. It applies to the world we're talking about today. And what is that world like? If you look at the old guard that's left, Jim Boeheim and Roy Williams and Coach K and all these coaches that Nick Saban, I know it's a different sport, but did not hide the fact that he got out because of the state of affairs that we're in. So Adrian Autry's got to deal with it, Mike. And remember, and this is something else we should incorporate into the conversation, has to do it down an assistant coach right now. You don't want to be down an assistant coach in the moment where you're reaching out to people, the back channeling, you're sorting through the portal. Like, he's down a guy, and I'm sure he'll address it pretty soon. Final Four week, there's a lot of connections that are made. It's like a coaches convention at the Final Four, as you well know, Mike. And by the way, our colleague Donna DeToda is going to be honored at the Final Four this week. Hall of Famer Donna DeToda, so shout out and congratulations to her. Jerry McNamara, no longer on the staff. So there's another thing that Autry's trying to do while also trying to fill the holes in the portal.
Yeah, and in terms of filling the holes with the roster, that's the other thing too. Is like the Syracuse fans, and again, I understand it. Everyone's a little bit in like freak out mode because of the losses. Well, eventually, you have to lose before you backfill, right? So they're 2 weeks in here. I have heard that they have been really digging in, doing their due diligence on these guys in the portal, that an inordinate amount of film breakdown. It's not just like calling up and getting like recommendations and stuff like that from people or gauging interest. Like, no, they are doing intensive film breakdown. They want to know if a kid will fit, what they need exactly. And now obviously they have to really probably reset and rethink, like, what are some of your needs? And to me, it's like if you're expecting to lose Judah, and we are, I think you need a point guard or at least a combo lead guard, something like that. With the loss of Quadir and Justin Taylor, I think a wing, and preferably a wing who can shoot, because we see how important three-point shooting is for successful teams. If you're watching the NCAA tournament, these teams have more than one or two guys who can shoot it from three. They've got a lot of shooters, most of them. And so I think, to add a shooter would be wonderful. And I think at this point now, you got to be looking at a big man.
Mm-hmm.
And a legitimate low post guy, because if you look at the most successful teams in the ACC this year, and especially the ones who had success in the tournament, you're looking at Carolina, Armando Bacot, Duke, Filipowski, Clemson, PJ Hall, NC State, DJ Burns. All these teams had, and as great as Malik was at times at the 5, and he fought, he scrapped, and like you said, he poked away all the steals. He wasn't a low post threat.
No.
He really wasn't a scorer where you dump the ball in, and now the other teams either had to let you go one-on-one or they helped off a shooter, right? And if you can get a guy where the other team has to come and offer help, you can all of a sudden get open three-point looks for your perimeter guys. And think about Chris Bell getting open looks. I'm sure that's like, Chris Bell's dream would be to have a low post guy who could kick
it out. Well, I'm struck by that, Mike, because obviously DJ Burns at NC State, the incredible story that they are.
Yeah.
If Purdue ends up playing UConn in the national championship game, you have Zach Edey and Klingon from UConn.
Yep.
So you still, guess what, kids? You still need a big man. In college basketball, with all the emphasis on three-point shooting and some of the players you brought up and what Chris Bell does, and you need that. If you have a center, especially a DJ Burns, Zach Edey, just large humans, it still matters to have that. And Mike, I would say this, in the portal, they're kind of like offensive linemen in football. That's the shortest list of players you're going to find. The true impact come in and dominate type of centers. There's a lot of players in the portal. There's a lot of players at a certain position in the portal. But if I'm Adrian Autry, I'm putting the emphasis on that. That is where I start, right? Mm-hmm. Malik is out. Peter Carey is out. From what we can see at this point, you always got to leave open the window. Something can happen. But Naheem McClown appears to be coming back next year. But let's remember, he's coming off an injury, right? Yep. You need to address that position. And I'm looking around the landscape of the sport. Everybody's a copycat. Look at the Final Four. Look at the teams that have, there's other reasons for their success, but it is amazing to see that, like, the rebirth of the true center, the true big man in college hoops, with so much discussion in recent years about guard play and three-point shots and the Steph Currying of basketball, if you will.
You're right. And listen, the NBA may not have as much use for that low post traditional center as it used to. They need guys who can step out and shoot threes, and they want, Nikola Jokic's and stuff like that. But at the college game, that big man still can have an impact. And if you don't have it, then you have to go in a completely different direction. You got to run, you got to harass on defense, you got to shoot a ton of threes. And that's that fourth Final Four team. That's Alabama. Although they do have a rotation of some bigs who cause some problems. Now, they may not be the low post offensive threats, but they still have a lot of guys that can play inside for them, especially defensively and rebounding the ball. But then everybody else on the floor shoots the three.
Mike,
you're looking at portal too. That's, Alabama's got Mark Sears too. 2 years ago, he was at Ohio, not Ohio State.
Ohio.
He was at Ohio U.
Bobcats, yeah. Not the Buckeyes.
And all these teams, NC State's and almost their entire starting five, or maybe the entire starting five, are all transfers. Including the wonderful, joyous DJ Burns. So Connecticut's got more homegrown guys than most, but they still have some portal guys, and Purdue's got one or two transfers there too. The shooter from Southern Illinois. His name's going to escape me right now because you got me here live, Brent. But,
it's escaping my head too. Between the two of us, somebody should remember that. But yeah,
we'll figure it out.
Mike, before I let you go, we brought it up earlier. Let me just circle back. Jerry McNamara, congratulations to him, by the way, I am thrilled for him that he's getting a head coaching opportunity. I think Siena is a perfect landing spot for him. Get his sea legs in a good league. They've got a great facility, great arena. They've had success. Louis Orr comes to mind, coaches that have gone through there and then used it as a springboard for bigger things. So congratulations to Jerry on getting the inevitable head coaching position that I think he was going to get. Didn't happen here. As you know, look, someone was going to be disappointed when Jim Boeheim left between Autry and GMAC, and GMAC's getting his opportunity, and I am absolutely thrilled for him. But it leaves a position open in Syracuse on the staff. So the first question that comes to mind, if you're Red Autry, is do you keep it in the family or do you just get the best guy? Ideally, it's both, but what's the latest you can tell us or you've heard or just what you think about filling the open position on the Syracuse coaching staff?
As far as it being within the Syracuse family, I don't know if there is a slam dunk candidate out there with Syracuse ties. I mean, Demetrius Nichols has spent just 1 year at the Division I level down at Wake Forest. So that's not a lot of experience. Jake Prosciutti, a former walk-on, just finished his first year as an assistant at University of Buffalo. I think, he needs more time before you consider him for that job, probably. Jason Hart was a pipe dream for a lot of folks, but I don't think he's coming back east, and I don't even know if he'll leave the pro ranks. If he does, it might, if he can throw his hat in the ring at Southern Cal, where he used to be an assistant for like 8 or 9 years. I don't know who that guy might be. So beyond that, the only other thing I really heard is that don't expect a rush on this. That they feel pretty good with what they, who they are up there. You got Adrian, you got Alan Griffin, you got Brendan Strawn. You got a dead period coming up here soon. They've locked in their class of 25 recruits. They haven't had to worry about that class. 24 for a while with Donnie Freeman and Elijah Moore. Yes, you have some portal work to do, but I think you're going to just try to manage with your 3 guys for the short term. I think they'll be okay for a little bit. They got work to do in the portal before they worry about hiring a coach.
Yeah. And
unless
like I said,
there's a candidate, and who knows, what if there's a candidate out there who's like, by the way, at my current school, I have this really good point guard who'll come with me.
Package deal. You got to keep your eyes open for that, right?
Yeah, we'll see.
A lot happening here. As Mike said, it's lacrosse, it's baseball, it's spring football. Nope, the portal is always knocking on your door. Malik Brown, the latest name there. We'll continue to keep an eye on it here. And as we mentioned, congratulations to our friend down at Dakota, Hall of Famer. It's Final Four week. The news will keep on coming, and we will be all over it for you here on syracuse.com, on the Syracuse Sports Podcast, and on our Syracuse Sports Insiders, who we're going to hear from here shortly. But, Michael, I appreciate your time and your insight as always, and we'll stay on it here, and the latest will be coming fast and furious, my friend.
Sounds good, Brent. There's another movie reference to end us with, Fast and Furious. Way to go. Good job.
Not a fan of those movies, but it was a good reference, that's for sure. Thank you, sir.
All right, Brent.
A Hall of Famer himself, ladies and gentlemen, the great Mike Waters joining us here. And just some finishing thoughts here from our Syracuse Sports Insiders and a couple other things here before we step aside for this live edition of Syracuse Sports. This day and age, I'm going to put it on the screen here if you're watching on YouTube, you have got to decipher social media. It's like the Da Vinci Code. So this is Quadir Copeland's Instagram. Malik Brown, I don't even know what the terminology is. He shared this on his Instagram page. Is it regramming? Like on Twitter, it's retweeting or re-Xing. Like, I'm not familiar with the terminology, but there's a video that Quadir Copeland, himself now officially in the portal, where he tags both Malik Brown and Benny Williams. And the video shows the 3 of them on the court together. And it says, "Where are we going?" Right? So what could that mean? How much does that factor into Malik Brown's decision-making here? Like, this is part of the game now. Like, there are these breadcrumbs that are left on social media. JJ Starling put up something the other day, and it was just like a photo of this past season, and he said it was fun with an orange emoji, and everybody's freaking out about that. I'm getting text from our Syracuse Sports Insiders and on Twitter, and everybody's like, well, what does this mean? And I'm like, I don't know. I don't speak social media, right? Like it's just, you just never know. Instagram is a platform where you just put up photos. Like it could be just as harmless as, hey, here's some pictures from the season, right? Like self-promotion. Some guys have like NIL deals where they post this stuff on Instagram, right? So it just kind of adds to the insanity, if you will. And everybody's trying to, well, what does it mean, right? That's like the bat signal goes up every time somebody posts on social media. But I did think that was interesting that Malik did essentially repost that from Quadir Copeland. So something to keep an eye on. Will some of these guys end up at the same school or what? Like this is kind of the world of speculation that we live in here. So before we get to our Syracuse Sports Insiders, you say to yourself, who does Syracuse go after here? Who are some of the names that are out there? And man, living in a world of speculation is tough. There are hundreds of names in the portal. Mike said it, though. This is a staff that is doing its due diligence on a number of players, right? And I think that there's a couple of names that rise to the top here that I think make sense for Syracuse. And I have heard there is some interest there. Now, if you look on social media, Joe Tipton and some of the guys, the Portal Report and some social media feeds that track this stuff. And what you'll see is, okay, X players in the portal, and the list is like 20 schools long. The following schools, we're told, have contacted this player, right? So Syracuse has been on a few of these lists. And some of the players I'm going to mention here haven't necessarily been contacted by Syracuse. We don't know. But to me, it would make sense. And I've heard there's been some interest there, right? So you're trying to replace Malik Brown. He could play forward. He was playing center last year. It would appear, and this is just speculation on my part, but maybe he was told what his role was going to be. Maybe he didn't want to play the 5 as Mike and I were talking here. So there's a couple big men that jump to mind here. One is Jair Davis at Delaware. I believe I'm saying that name correctly. Pardon me if I'm not. He's a grad transfer, 6'7" forward. He started 32 games, 17 points, 7.5 rebounds, just over 2 assists per game last year. I think that's a player Syracuse has looked at. I think it's a player they're interested in, and I think he'd make a heck of a lot of sense to come in. There's another name out there that this could be their DJ Burns. We're talking about these big centers that are out there. Keep an eye on Eddie Lampkin Jr. from Texas, Colorado transfer, 6'11", 270-pound center. Now, keep in mind, DJ Burns is 6'9", 275. This guy's 6'11", 270, played all 37 games for Colorado last year. He averaged 10.6 points, 7 rebounds last year. He would also be a one-year guy, a grad transfer, wherever he would go. That's a name I'd keep an eye on out there. Another name now this is a different position, but a guy that I've heard Syracuse really likes, and to my knowledge, I don't think he's officially in the portal. But if he does end up in the portal, Eric Reynolds from St. Joe's, 6'2", 180, led the Atlantic 10, just looking at my numbers here, led the A10 in 3 points, averages 20 points a game. So when the inevitable happens, and I think it's inevitable that Judah Mintz is not going to be on this roster next year, there's a plug-and-play guy right there. You got a backcourt right now. And look, Elijah Moore and J.J. Starling are almost the same guy. Like, I don't know if that's literally your backcourt, but you got Elijah Moore coming in. At this point, J.J. Starling coming back. If you can put Reynolds at the point, just speaking theoretically here, J.J. at the 2, work it, because Moore's going to play. Moore can shoot the lights. I mean, this guy had over 60 points in a single game this year in a state playoff game, right? What was it, 67 points I think he had? He's getting on the court. Donnie Freeman's getting on the court, right? And you've got these positions you've got to replace at Syracuse. I mean, here's what you have right now. We talked about the guys that left. You have J.J. Starling, Naheem McLeod, Kyle Cuff, Chris Bell. Remember Chance Westry coming off that injury. That's kind of a mystery because we don't know where he's going to be at in the fall, but we know he got healthy. They took it easy. They didn't rush him out there. By the time the season starts in the fall, he should be good to go. And you hear a lot of good things about William Patterson. You still have to bring in a center for sure. And if they get Lampkin, that's quite literally a big addition for Syracuse. But mix in Moore, mix in Freeman, mix in the 1, 2, maybe. And remember, you don't have to replace every spot on the roster. Just because you lost at this point 5 guys doesn't mean you have to bring in 5. You bring in the right number for the mix. And, Autry was saying that he wants to go deeper on the bench. And by the end of the season, he couldn't because of the departure of Benny Williams and a couple of injuries that were on this roster. So, look, we could do an entire show speculating about names. Every time somebody goes in the portal, I get the tweet, I get the text. Oh, that guy would be good for Syracuse. And you kind of have to decipher the ones that make sense for Syracuse. What's their ask in terms of playing time? What's their ask in terms of NIL? What kind of budget are you working with there? What kind of salary cap, if you will, are you working with there? There's another guy in the portal, and I want to look him up here, whose name escapes me at the moment. I mean, he's right on the tip of my tongue. So let me look it up here while we're yapping about it here. But the Harvard guard who went in the portal the other day, and immediately people jumped all over that name as somebody that would work for Syracuse. Boy. Maliq Mack from Harvard, who is somebody, by the way, that wants big NIL money from what I understand, 1. And 2, Judah Mintz actually tweeted about, right? With all the speculation about Judah Mintz actually tweeted something last week where he said Georgetown rumors, and he did 2 thumbs down emojis. So there was some juice out there that he would, can you imagine that, by the way? What a heel turn that would be. I'm not a huge wrestling guy, but that would be like when Hulk Hogan went to like WCW, right? When he was Hollywood Hogan and he painted his beard black and the whole thing. Like, that would be the biggest heel turn in history if Judah Mintz went to Georgetown. But he shut down that possibility. Look, we brought it up earlier with Mike about all indications are he goes pro. If somebody steps in with a huge NIL offer where you would make more than he would, and if this was the case, in the G League next year or at the end of a bench of an NBA roster is like a late first, second round pick. I think Judah would be a second round pick if he went into the draft this year, which all indications are he seems to be going there. But when Judah tweeted that the other day, I was like, oh, what? I almost wanted that to happen just from the amazing storyline that would be. Like I said, I'm not even a wrestling fan, but Max, another guy to watch. We could go through 100 names here, guys. We really could, and we'd be here all night. So just keep an eye on those few names that we brought up here and where Syracuse could go. Because as I said earlier, and I'm going to get to some Syracuse Sports Insiders here, the pendulum swings the other way. So the pressure is on Adrian Autry now to start filling holes. We've seen who's left, what the landscape is. We're down to the Final 4. More players are going in the portal. As Mike said, they've been doing their due diligence on this. I've heard the same, and some names mentioned there and a few others that are floating out there that they seem to be centering on. So you're freaking out. What are they going to do? Well, now the pendulum swings the other way, and you start adding names to the roster, which we'll be watching intently here over the next week or so and beyond while the portal's open to see how Syracuse responds. This is how our Syracuse Sports Insiders responded to this, and we would love for you to become a Syracuse Sports Insider. All you have to do is text the word orange to 315-847-3895. That gets you direct access to me to ask your questions, share your opinions. Hey, you guys give me tips as Syracuse Sports Insiders. Did you see this? Did you see that? Did you hear this? Like, it is a two-way conversation, but anything I'm hearing, my opinions first, inside analysis, news. We're doing a bracket challenge with our Syracuse Sports Insider. Shout out to Tampa Ron, who's in first place right now and heading down the home stretch here, looking like he's probably going to take this thing. Join us today. You can try it free for 2 weeks, and it's just $3.99 a month after that. Let's hear from our Syracuse Sports Insiders. Eddie P drops in to say, got to see how Adrian and the remaining coaches can recruit and retain. Retain being a new adjective in today's college basketball landscape. Christopher K says, just a name in a jersey. Sadly, the days of rooting for players are over. I don't wish him ill will. I don't wish him well. I just don't care. We will pull another player from the portal, and that will be that. It's a sad truth from Christopher, right? It is getting so much tougher to invest yourself emotionally in players. And I don't want to pull the back in my day, but I'm going to. And back in my day, kids, Derek Coleman was around for 4 years. He could have gone pro after his junior year, but came back. Billy Owens went early, but he was around for 3 years. Pearl Washington was around. Even the guys that went pro, they were around for 3 years. Look at women's college basketball, right? Tonight, we're going to see a rematch between Angel Reese and Caitlin Clark, LSU, Iowa. The biggest names in their sport, they stay around. Now, Paige Beckers was injured, so it's kind of a different conversation. But at Paige Beckers at UConn, they're around 2-3 years. Because while coaches in college basketball are typically the stars, and think of Jim Boeheim and John Thompson and Raleigh Massimino and Rick Pitino, and I'm just thinking of the old Big East guys, right? Even up until the modern era, all the names that have walked away, the Jay Wrights, the Roy Williams, the Mike Krzyzewskis, those big personnel, like Tom Izzo's like the last of the old guard of these names that pop. I love what Danny Hurley's doing at UConn, and a new generation replaces them, right? But in terms of the players and the stars, like DJ Burns emerged this year, Zach Edey at Purdue, a few other names. That's great, but it's hard. They're mercenaries year in and year out. You do root for laundry. You root for the name on the front and not on the back, right? It gets a little tougher to do that because people want, if you're a little kid, and a lot of our Syracuse Sports Insiders shared pictures this year. There's a particular player that 8, 9, 10, 11-year-old kids attach themselves to. Like, that's a hard conversation to have. Like, if your son or daughter is 11 and 12 years old, whatever the case may be, at an age where they don't get all this stuff, and Malik Brown's their favorite player, imagine sitting down at dinner tonight being like, well, Malik Brown's moving on, right? And college players move on quicker, but it makes it tougher to be a fan these days, especially, let's be honest here, guys. There's so many other options in life, right, than being a college sports fan, which it's the yin and the yang of it. I don't begrudge them chasing their opportunities and getting all the money they can get and a playing time role that's better for them. Coaches have come and gone for years like that, so the players are just kind of, the chickens came home to roost kind of thing, and I don't oppose that, but some of these comments are hard to disagree with. I'll put it that way. Frankie S. says, assuming Judah announces his intention soon, that means Malik, Q, Carey, JT, and Benny will be gone. Throw in GMAC as well. And Frank adds this. I'll say this. Maybe it was time to just completely shuffle the entire deck. Fresh start for everyone. I really hope Red gets the right guy to replace Jerry, someone who can be an ace recruiter. And he got cut off a little bit there, but it said not only in recruiting, but in the transfer portal. From Ben K, who says, was chatting with my friends from Syracuse today. I'm a class of 2018 alum, and we're just not sure what Syracuse can do to avoid transfers like that. Malik's a prime example of that, Ben. That's a great comment because he would have had a role on this team, a role that would grow. He's certainly on the NBA's radar. That's not an issue. He was getting NIL money. He was getting commercial opportunities. So you're thinking to yourself, we're doing everything right. He's playing, he's getting commercials, he's getting money, but then someone can swoop in there and say, well, we can give you more of everything or better of everything that you're seeking, right? From Don P, who says, so sad. It really makes it hard to root for a team when you're looking at a complete roster turnover year to year. Greg J says, precisely why the transfer portal, an absurd NIL carrot, needs to be addressed before college sports attendance tanks. Who wants to pay big ticket money to watch musical chairs, player edition? From Gary, who says he had a starring role in the program. It would have been an even bigger one this coming season. Unless there's an unknown problem, I don't understand what these kids are looking for. Now, Gary brings up a good point here, because remember, now all these guys have a year under their belt of what Adrian Autry is like as a head coach. And I'm just thinking out loud here, I'm not saying anything specific. I mean, Autry ran, from what I heard, harder practices than Jim Boeheim. They had game day shoot-arounds. He was a different coach. And these players had to get used to his style and his way, right? How they track these guys academically, what their roles are, not only on the court, but off the court, the blunt assessments they got after the season. They didn't know. They were told this is the way it's going to be. But now all these guys have it banked in their head. Now I know what it's like to play at Syracuse for Adrian Autry. And maybe they didn't like it for whatever reason. It just wasn't for them. Maybe they were told the rules would be different. Some players left for other reasons, as we know. Benny Williams, Quadir Copeland. There were other reasons why he left beyond basketball. Everybody's got reasons for this. So as it's brought up there, what we don't know, what's happening behind the scenes? Were you not happy in Syracuse? Are these guys such good friends of yours that you want to play with them elsewhere? Academics, life, just things come up beyond what's on the surface. It's the old adage of, the duck is floating on the surface and you see the duck, but you don't see what's happening below the water. It leads to a world of speculation. I don't want to get into that, but there's a number of reasons why these guys do what they do. Arvin jumps in to say, build a team like the rest of the field, bring in experienced players from the portal, and make a deep run like NC State this year and Pitt last year. It's a model that even Coach Boeheim agrees with. Look, that's the counter to this argument for people that are frustrated about it. NC State made this miracle run for a number of reasons. They're all transfers. It can be done. Steve N says, wow, Malik Brown checking out. I think it's quite concerning, all these players entering the portal. It makes me wonder why. Is there something else going on behind the scenes? Michael MC says, I'm not happy with what I'm hearing about Malik Brown leaving. Basically, with Judah potentially leaving, 4 of our 5 core guys are out right now, building around JJ and Bell. I don't get it. A couple more from you guys as Michael finishes up with this. Every year a player can look around for a quick fix, an easier path, so they think, to get in the tournament. He really was the anchor of this team. And we'll close with David K's comment here. It's getting hard to root for any team. You don't know whom you're rooting for. More turnover than pro teams. I'm all for paying college athletes, but this system really sucks. Again, that's hard to disagree with. It is getting harder to be a fan of programs these days. If you're a college sports fan, this is not what you signed up for. There is a certain feel and a reason you watch college sports, and a lot of those reasons are being stripped away, right? Not to say these players don't deserve the money. This is what happens when the NCAA fell asleep at the wheel for so long, and these players are getting what they deserve, what coaches could always do. The schools that were making money off the backs of these players, they're now getting what they deserve. But I think everybody can agree, where do we meet in the middle? What kind of guardrails can we put into place? I'm just thinking out loud here, but should these guys sign contracts? That's a whole other world that you're opening up, though, right? But it is a bit of organized chaos in college sports these days. It's fascinating, don't get me wrong, but it's also very frustrating. I get it. I totally get it, especially from a fan standpoint. You're like, man, every year. And college, kids move on, right? 2, 3, 4 years, they're gone, so you're used to that. But every year, to just hit the reset button and who's on my team now, I get it. It swings the other way, though, guys. Look at the football team. I'm watching practice, and I'm seeing Kyle McCord and Fidel Diggs and Jackson Meeks and Zeed Haynes. And guys, you're like, this is where the portal works. Instant additions of talent, instant upgrade. You look at it, there's a noticeable difference on that football field this year. So the portal giveth, the portal taketh away. The portal make you better, the portal make you worse. It swings both ways. Shameless plug on that, by the way, guys. Spring practice coverage. Emily Leiker and I will have a couple more podcasts this week, keeping a close eye on Syracuse spring practice. They will practice Tuesday and Thursday this week. There's been a number of commitments. Syracuse actually now has the second most commitments for the class of 2025. They actually got a class of 2026 recruit over the weekend. It was ranked in the top 75, according to a couple of recruiting services. So recruiting's been hot and heavy. We've been on that, on the podcast, and our Syracuse Sports Insiders have heard all about it. My first impressions, quotes from practice. Our Syracuse Sports Insiders get it first, so sign up today by texting the word orange to 315-847-3895. Lacrosse, hot and heavy, big matchup, Syracuse at Cornell. Tuesday night, the portal stuff, it's all happening, friends. It's a busy time of the year, and it's a great time to be a Syracuse Sports Insider. So we would love for you to sign up and be a part of the community today. We've got a couple more editions of Syracuse Sports coming your way this week on Syracuse Spring Football. So if you haven't, please subscribe on YouTube, Spotify, Syracuse Sports, and get the latest. That's going to do it for this edition of Syracuse Sports. Thanks for hanging with us this afternoon, guys. Please subscribe, as we mentioned. Spotify, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts so you never miss a thing. Thanks to our friends at Krause Health, the exclusive healthcare partner for SU Athletics. And we will talk to you next time.